Here we go.
So once again, this is on Icy Cup Citadel of Gaia. Very large map, mutual choke points in base expansions, tons of expansions as a matter of fact, and a pretty long rush distance as well. Looks like everybody has loaded here. And game number 1, kicking off the PTSL Day 2, officially begins. Thank you guys all for joining us once again. I'm Adabizi, co-casting here with Sai. Once again, tomorrow it will actually be HD and Pain User coming in to cast the semifinals, finals, and the rest of the lower bracket too as well. And all the players in the game here. So it looks like Guns and Brooches in the southern pairing of bases here. We've got Minigun spawning as the purple Protoss, and of course his ally, the infamous Root Destiny, or just Destiny, whatever you want to call him, as the blue Zerg. And then in the northern spawn locations here, we've got Team ProTech, Hack ProTech spawning as the pink Zerg, and his opponent also going to be spawning as Zerg this game is Power, the red Zerg.
A Zerg. So the only other team composition that has Zerg is of course Rhett and Shet. So we'll see if these guys can pull off what those two pulled off. Last time we saw just mass Zergling, Roaches, and Infestors to seal the series with Rhett and Shet. I don't know if these guys are going to plant some kind of double 10 pool. It looks like they are both producing their overlords right now, so we won't see that. But if we check out the geography of this base, there is an easily accessible expansion here within the confines of these two ramps, within the choke point. So maybe a double fast expansion. We saw in the first or second Rhett and Sheth game, double expansion actually ended up backfiring. They ended up losing pretty handily when they tried that. So we'll see what they choose to do this time around.
Yeah, this is definitely a much easier map to do any kind of fast expansion on. However, Minigun is scouting out to do a pylon scout, so he's going to be able to get in here, see exactly what races his opponents have spawned as, so he should be pretty safe. And it looks like we're not going to see any sort of hyper-aggression from any players here. Destiny did go for, I believe that was an 11 pool, but that is not necessarily at all a type of aggressive 11 pool. It's more just a be safe 11 pool. Meanwhile, we do have Hack going ahead, dropping his pool. It looks like Power is going to be going for a hatchery first build, so definitely the gears are in motion for quite a bit of a longer game here.
Yeah, and it's always good when you don't know what your opponent's race is to go that early pool, 11 pool, 10 pool. Apparently, a lot of the Zerg players here like that 11 pool with that extractor trick, but it is now up. Destiny's starting his queen. He had quite a few stockpiled minerals, so I thought maybe an 11 pool into some kind of weird hatchery expansion because this base allows it so easily, and it looks like he's moving that drone up. Yep, there it is. He starts his queen, he starts his 11 pool, and this actually seems like a really interesting build. He actually cut drones, and he cut Zerglings to get that early expansion. We can see he's got 3 larvae saved up, and this is actually really strange. I've never seen this before.
It's 11 pool, 18 hatch. I know there's a lot of threads on Team Liquid about that build. I'm not a Zerg player, though, so I've never actually kind of analyzed it, but I know there are a lot of benefits to doing that. Just look it up. There's a big thread on Team Liquid, I think. But either way, Roach is coming out here pretty quick from Destiny as well, as he's getting that Roach Warren nice and fast. It's interesting, Minigun didn't opt to put his first pylon at the choke point here. He built that as main, but now he is beginning to wall this off. You definitely got to be very careful when you are against 2 Zergs. I mean, if you don't have all those choke points accounted for, things can get very hairy very fast. But once again, it looks like Team ProTech here not looking to get too aggressive at all, as now Hack is also expanding.
Yep, he's throwing down that hatchery at his natural, and as you mentioned earlier, you got to be careful against those 2 Zergs, especially when there are 2 chokes. Now, Minigun is covering his choke, and it looks like he is sending that probe over to the other choke of Destiny to cover that ground as well, because Zergs can't really wall off. They'd have to spread their creep up there, throw down some evolution chambers, and in the process, they're just wasting drones, and it's just not an easy task. Just let the Protoss do it.
And ProTech finishing speed here, moving across the map with a lot of lings here. Going to pick off 1 probe there, but of course that probe going to provide some good scouting information. And Minigun looks like he's completely walled off the bottom side here, and then just going to have a Zealot holding position. But it looks like there's a fair amount of space there, and they got to be careful. Might need to drop a force field here. Oh dear.
Looks like a couple Lings were able to squeeze through a decent force field, blocking them off for the time being, and there's a complete wall-off down there. Lings beating away, but those Roaches will 3-shot those Lings, and it looks like, oh, they might get in. 1 or 2 Lings, 3 Lings getting in, but those Roaches and Sentries and that Zealot is just too much. ProTech probably just needs to back off, try to cut his losses at this point. And it looks like he's going to try to bust down the rocks. Okay, well, he got a couple shots in. not too much. And, you know, this number of Lings, it really cuts into your drone count. He's sitting at 14, but this kind of aggression might just be a smokescreen for his partner, who's actually sitting at 35 drones right now. Doesn't have a single offensive unit, 37 drones and 3 queens.
Yeah, he is teching up to Lair as well, and also getting that +1 ranged attack very quick, so likely we'll see some kind of Roach Hydra mix of them. Probably just mostly Roaches. Hydras on this map, I mean, it is a massive rush distance. Meanwhile, on the other hand, we do have Minigun now throwing down his expansion, also getting a robotics facility, so I think we're going to be seeing Colossus out of him pretty soon down the line here, while they just rely on some of these sentries for defense. That's kind of the go-to composition we've been seeing out of Destiny and Minigun, just Infestor, Roach, Colossus, and some gateway units. Just kind of very effective, very hardy unit composition.
Yeah, those Infestors, especially against Zerg, they just excel. In a Zerg versus Zerg, you have to get Infestors. You can't win with just Roaches. You can't win with Roach Hydras. You have to get Infestors and manage those well. So Destiny, you know, being the Zerg up against 2 other Zergs, those Infestors are really going to excel, especially against this Mass Ling. Against Roaches, they do bonus damage. And pretty much any ranged unit that Minigun has will be able to outrange most Zerg units while they are fungal growth, so it's going to be a great combination of units. It might be a bit unfortunate that they drew Zerg on this map, considering how Destiny is just being free to macro up. It's up to 39 drones, running out 4 gas, and there it is, the Infestation Pit.
Yep, meanwhile the Robotics Bay is also almost done here, so they're going to be getting that money unit composition. And like you said, Bane, if you engage into Colossus Infestor and you don't mean it, you just get absolutely shredded. I mean, all those Lings don't quite die in one fungal, but they die pretty fast to Colossus, and there's just no escaping. Looks like Power is actually going to start working away on these triple rocks with 2 Roaches, doing a great job here, really keeping the pressure on. And I'm curious, does Minigun, yeah, Minigun actually has an Observer out, it's actually heading across the map here. And Destiny actually also with an Overseer out, so he's just kind of doing some poking around. I think he's going to be relieved when he saw the natural expansion of Power, how many drones were actually there, because they would definitely rather play a bit of a longer game as opposed to dealing with just some kind of big bust, as these the big bust looks like it's kind of coming anyways. These Chakra Rocks are nearly taken out. We're going to need to see some good force fields here for sure.
And there they are. There's 2 force fields. They were able to break the rocks, but as we mentioned before, the choke on this map is just so narrow. There's 3 ramps, but there's really only 1 choke. Here comes the Battle of Lings trying to swarm in, but 1 Colossus. He needs to be careful not to let that Colossus drop. It's going to be extremely effective against those Lings, and I just don't see this double Zerg force doing a whole lot. That Colossus just raining down 23 kills on it already. Roach on Roach. And some more force fields, cutting a couple Roaches in the back. This Colossus is shining, though. 26 kills. I'm just going to keep that selected and see how many he gets. Destiny continuing to rally Roaches. He smartly had that Roach Warren just in case he couldn't get to Infestors in time. And Power and ProTech forced to back off. Destiny and Minigun just winning that outright.
Yeah, just a very solid defense, really taking advantage of the map architecture, planning the perfect force fields. And it was actually quite close a little bit there because, of course, he didn't have a lot of sentries, and he made the most out of really every single force field, and then his cybernetics core did get taken out, so he couldn't actually get more sentries. But either way, just a very solid defense, and they're certainly sitting very pretty right now. I think Destiny going to be starting off that Infestor production. Yeah, he's got 4 in production right now. Of course, Pathogen Glance is already completed, so he's going to probably have a little grin on his face pretty soon. He is also getting that Overlord speed, so we might be seeing drops in a little while, too, which is always a very potent composition, and they're just going to go ahead and just take another expansion.
Yep, each of them are taking 1 expansion. Destiny on the left side, Minigun on the right side, and looks like we're going to see some Infestor hit squad here. He is getting that speed. I don't see any drop yet, but I can imagine their conversation right now that they're having in their chat. You know, they have to be pretty happy. Destiny not yelling at Minigun too much right now, probably. Maybe getting angry that he lost the cybernetics core. I don't know. But they're in great shape, and it looks like Power actually responding with his own 3rd base. Not going to be finished anytime soon. It looks like Destiny and Minigun are posing to be aggressive, maybe just trying to station their units outside to keep their 3rd bases safe.
Yeah, these third bases are a little awkwardly positioned, and those minerals actually form a full wall off, so you have to kind of walk out and all the way around, and of course they're facing opposite directions, so definitely a lot of potential for harassment, but once again, when you're harassing against someone with infestors, and their ally is now actually double producing Colossus, you just got to be so careful, because if your big ball of roaches gets fungled, they can just basically all say goodnight. And look at this, Destiny actually scouting out Power's expansion. He's actually got, I think, almost every expansion on the map scouted, so they know exactly where they stand, and they're just really in great shape right here.
Yeah, he's pooping Overlords all over those expansions. Not really going to matter because he is up against 2 Zerg opponents, but scouting information, definitely a good thing. And Destiny now transferring drones to the expansion. They're mining from the back of the patches and running all the way around to the front. Those poor guys have their work cut out for them. And as we can see here, it looks like they're not going to go after this third base of Power. They're just going to be content taking their own third bases and trying for a stronger unit composition.
Yeah, Destiny actually has 2 infestors there, but either way, it looks like Power and ProTech going to be